Yesterday we finished up this page. We started in on the next page where we did the graphs. And then we actually did the first one on the following page. You're supposed to start on this page and go do problem number 3 and go all the way until you got to the very back page of the packet. And that's where we're picking up today. What I want you to do right now is compare your answers on all the graphs that you did last night there. Okay? Talk with your neighbor, compare your answers. I'll be cruising around. You can ask questions. Have your attention back up here. This first one, notice the graph of F to the graph of G. How's it's translated? We call this one G. This graph is moved, the graph of G is moved to the right 4 units. So if this is y equals f of x, then this one would be y equals f of x. Many of you have the right answer. What'd you get? F of x minus 4. Yep. Okay, or I guess it wouldn't be, we call it g of x. I'd call it g of x equals f of x minus 4. Yeah, it's f of x minus 4. Very good. Okay, so what's happening on the inside, it's translating it horizontally, so it goes to the right 4. All right, next page. Many of you have that one. Okay, number 4 here says the graph y equals f of x shown on the grid. On this grid, sketch f of x all minus 4 there. So that means the graph moves down 4 units. Notice the scale here, though. What's our y-axis going up by? 2. So when I go down 4 units, I'm actually going down 2, 4. It brings my vertex, brings that point right there. It'll bring this point right there. It'll bring this point right there. Okay, and looks like it also hits perfect there and there. So we'll go ahead and go down 4 and down 4. So try to be accurate with your curve. Don't just kind of randomly sketch the curve there. Okay. All right. The next one on the grid, sketch 1/2 x. So it's happening on the inside. It's multiplying. So this is a translation, stretch, or shrink. This is a stretch. It's a stretch. This is a horizontal stretch. Remember, it's a stretch because you have to take the reciprocal by the factor of 2. So we're stretching horizontally, which means we are stretching away from the y-axis. So we're pulling away from that. All right. So we're stretching horizontally. This point is going out by a factor of 2. It's now here. This point is going out by a factor of 2. It's now here. So a point that was 2 units away is now 4 units away. This point that's actually on the y-axis stays on the y-axis. Okay. This point right here that was 4 units away is now 8 units away. And this point that was 4 units away is now 8 units away. So our graph got wider. Should look like that. Okay, it did a horizontal stretch. You figured it out, Chris? Okay. Questions there? Anything on that page? Okay, next page. This one, f of x minus 3, is this horizontal or vertical? Horizontal, stretch or shrink? Neither. What is it? It's translation. Translation, right 3. Okay, so we're moving this graph 1, 2, 3 to there. So that point moved there. This point that's perfect right there, 1, 2, 3. This point that's perfect right there, 1, 2, 3. And this point is perfect there, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And this point that's perfect there, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that allows us then to go ahead and do a quick sketch of that. questions there? Next one. This one's a vertical what? Vertical stretch. BAFO 2. So we're stretching away from the x-axis. That means all the points are getting twice as far from the x-axis. So this point that's right here is currently 1 unit away. It's now going to go 2 units away. This point that's right here on the x-axis stays on the x-axis. If it's already 0 away, it stays 0 away. This point right here is 3 units away. Has to now become 6 units away. And this point that's 3 units away will now become 6 units away. Okay? So as we're doing this, it looks something like that. Okay. Next page. The graph of f of x is shown. All right. On the grid above, sketch the graph of y equals negative f of x. This almost looks like negative f of x. That says equals f of x. Okay, we want negative f of x, which means this is negatives on the outside. So is it vertical or horizontal? Vertical. And is it, what's the negative mean? It's a reflection. Good. Reflection over which axis? The x-axis, right? Because it's going, always think to yourself, well, that point's there, it's going down, okay, because that's a vertical. All right, so this point that's on the x-axis stays there. This point that's currently 1 above the x-axis now goes 1 below it. 1 above goes 1 below it. This one's 4 above, and this one's 4 above. They'll both go 4 below. So our graph just flips upside down there. There we go. All right. Questions there? Next one, we're moving it. We're going from f of x to g. This once again is an equal sign. Going from f to g, we are moving how far? Moving 6. Okay, so it's f of x minus 6. And I'm going to call it g of x. G of x is equal to f of x minus 6. Let's move into the right 6. All right, next page. So writing down the coordinates of the minimum, remember, is this point right here. I know we haven't studied that much, but it's the bottom of our graph. Okay, so if we are moving it up 3, are we affecting the x or the y? The y. So we're at 3. Okay, and then the y is at 1, so we go 1 plus 3 to give us 4. Okay, this is x minus 2. This is a horizontal translation to the right, 2. So if I'm here at 3 and I'm going to the right 2, where am I going to be now? I'll be at 5. So that's now 5, 1. And this is a horizontal, what? Stretch. BAFO 2, the reciprocal, which means I'm stretching away from the y-axis twice as far. So I'm pulling away from this axis. So it's 3 units currently. I now have to be 6 units. Okay, so it's going to be 6, 1. Okay. Hey, we've already done this one. Brady, are you the one that pointed that out to me? Yeah. This is the same one that we had earlier. Ridiculous. Can't believe I put that on there. Okay. Still g of x equals f of x minus 4. Okay, last page before we get to the final. All right. So again, we're taking the minimum. We're moving it 2 units to the right. 2 units to the right. It goes from 3 to 5. 5 negative 4. And this one has multiple things. This inside is moving it 5 units to the left. So from 3, and if I go 5 that way, be at negative 2. That's ridiculous. My pencil just broke. Negative 2. And then I am doing what to it? Adding 6. So that's going to change y. It's going to go to, I think that's negative 4. So it'd actually move it up to 2. Move it up to 2. Okay. All right. Everyone rate themselves 1 to 5 right now. Get it? Not on ease, but on. Okay. Hey, you guys remember all this is being recorded, so if you're struggling at all, go back and review it a bit this weekend, okay? We're going to look at the last page. Now, the last page says describe the transformations of the parent function of each of the following, and you'll notice each of these things have multiple transformations. So this is now putting everything together. Okay, and now let me explain. We follow order operations to a point here. So you always start on the inside. So like if you have a parenthesis set, or you have something like this where there are implied parentheses, like everything's under this radical, so it's implied parenthesis, you always do what's in there first. If you're looking at like this one, well, this one doesn't have parentheses. So in this case, you work from the x outward. You start at x and you work your way out away from x. Okay? In fact, you can kind of think of that even with the parentheses. You work from x and kind of on outward. If you want to use that rule, work from x out. Okay, so on letter A, are there any parentheses? No. So that means everything is it vertical or horizontal? Everything's vertical because there's no parentheses. Everything's on the outside. Okay? So when I look at this, I've got to start here. So ignore the other numbers and just look at the thing attached to x first. What's the 1/3 do? It's a vertical. Is it a stretch, shrink, or translation? This is a vertical shrink. Remember, it's not backwards unless it's on the inside. Okay, so vertical shrink, BAFO. BAFO what? 1/3. Okay? Then we go to the -7. Well, the -7 is still outside, so that's vertical. Is it a stretch, shrink, or translation? Translation. Translation, up or down? Down 7. Remember, the parentheses is where everything is backwards. If it's just, there aren't parentheses, it's normal. Okay, it just does what you think it should do. Okay, so now you're doing multiple things, so you kind of work your way out. So on letter B, there are parentheses. They're implied right here. Okay, so you didn't know that. You write them in. They're implied. You have to do what's in the radical first. However, is anything happening? No. So then we work our way out. We deal with this 4 next. Tell your neighbor what that does. Okay, it's a vertical what? Stretch. BAFO. 4. By a factor of. Yeah. It just sounds cool. Once again, name an animal. You get some cool math animal names.
We could get a duckling and name it Bafo. Class duckling.
Okay, what's this plus 4 do? Vertical or horizontal? Vertical. Stretch, shrink, or translation? Translation. Translation, which way? Vertical can't go left. Don't you just like throwing out everything? You put all 4 options. Up 4. Plus 4. Okay. Moving on. Next part. Tell your neighbor what we deal with first. All right. So what do we deal with first? Raise your hand, please. Lucas. The parentheses. So which thing in there? Yeah, the x. So what number? 2. Good. The thing attached to x. Now you guys remember, normally we would say, yeah, we go that route. However, that's kind of our intuitive approach, right? We've said, hey, we always start with parentheses. That's true. We start inside and we start with x, but once again, everything's backwards in here. So you don't actually start with the 2, you start with the 10 because it's backwards. Everything is completely backwards on the inside. So what you think you should do, you actually do the other thing. Okay? Even the order operations you do backwards. So Lucas, I kind of set you up there. Okay? But so we deal with the 10 first. And the 10 is a horizontal translation. Which way? Left. Left. 10. You guys, horizontal, for those of you that keep saying up or down with horizontal or left, right with vertical, dude, you got to like make a note on your mirror or something at home. Vertical goes up, down. Horizontal goes left, right. Horizon, like the sun horizon. You know, those of you who get up here and come to math class so you can look at the horizon every morning because sun doesn't come up until after math starts. It's kind of sad. Okay. Horizontal, translation left 10. Tell your neighbor what the 2 does now. Okay, how many say it's horizontal? How many say it's vertical? Horizontal? Why is it horizontal? Inside parentheses. Okay? Horizontal. Stretch, shrink. Say shrink. Baffo. 1/2. For those of you struggling with this, and like really, you have this written down, right? Follow these steps. This is back earlier. So that should be your friend. For those of you like, I got to turn a page? Are you kidding me? Well, sorry, man. I'm not going to work harder than you. You got to work. Okay? You got to put in some effort here. You've got it right there. It's in your notes. Right? Use your notes. Okay, let's move on. Letter D. Tell your neighbor what we got. All right. We start inside the parentheses. Do we start with the 5 or the negative? The 5. It's backwards, right? So the 5, is it horizontal or vertical? Horizontal. Stretch, shrink, or translation? Translation. Left or right? Left. 5. Okay, the negative. Horizontal or vertical? Still on the inside, so it's horizontal. It's a reflection. Now, the only reason I put horizontal, usually you don't put that. You just put reflection over. Remember, if we're doing, the reason I show horizontal is so that we know, hey, we're moving horizontally. So if I had a point here and I moved it horizontally, it would go to there. Which axis did I go over? The y-axis. How many got it right? Okay, try letter E, please. Nathan, what's up? Hey, good question. You guys, this little exponent right here just tells you what parent function it goes with. So that would tell me it's not linear, it's quadratic. It means my graph would look something like that. Okay? The 2, I know we haven't studied quadratics this year yet, but that's what that means. So we ignore that right now. Okay? Let's go to letter E. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, which one do I start with? Do I start with 2, negative, or 5? 2. 2 is a vertical or horizontal? Vertical what? It's a vertical stretch. Baffo. 2. And then the negative is a vertical reflection over. If we're going vertically, we go that way. So it's going over the x-axis. Now, just so you know, you could actually do either of these first because they're both attached to the x. So you could have done this one and then this one, or that one. It doesn't matter the order there. But you have to do both of those before you do the 5. The 5 is a vertical translation up 5.
Oh.
Okay, questions there? Go on to letter F. Letter F. Write down what you get there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, which do I deal with first, the 1/3 or the -9? -9, and it's on the inside, so it is a horizontal translation right 9. And then it is a horizontal stretch baffo 3. Right? You got to take the reciprocal. It's backwards in there. Okay? Luke?
Why is it a translation? Translation have to be positive?
No, if it's positive, it moves to the left. If it's +9, it would move to the left. If it's -9, it moves to the right. The negative, if you were thinking reflection, the negative would have to be attached to the x. Okay. All right, let's move on. It would be like letter G. So letter G, the negative's attached. So that's a reflection. Okay, so do I deal with the negative or the 4 first?
Negative.
Yeah, we deal with the 4 first. Or you should make a note of it. You keep being wrong about the same thing. It's like walking into a door 15 times before opening it. Okay? It's a horizontal translation. Which way?
The right, left.
The left. 4. And then horizontal reflection. Tell your neighbor which axis.
On the y-axis.
Horizontal. If we're here, we go horizontally, we move to there, so that's over the y-axis. See, you're getting that part, right?
I get
You
that,
got the
but
reflections.
I don't get why you do 4 first, not negative.
It's backwards in here.
Why is it backwards again?
Everything's counterintuitive on the inside of the parentheses.
Okay.
But if-
Parentheses, if there's a negative, if there's like just a variable by itself, you always do it in numbers.
Correct.
Okay.
Make a note of it, though. Okay, letter H. Tell your neighbor what's first.
Okay,
Okay, let's see how you did.
so vertical.
First is the -6.
I was right.
Horizontal translation, which way?
I was right.
Right. 6. And then we deal with the 3. It's a horizontal shrink. Baffo 1/3. And then we deal with the 4, which is a vertical translation up 4. How many got it? How many got at least 2 parts of it?
I got one.
Hey, let's get more. This next one, letter I. Tell your neighbor what you get. Okay, the first thing is horizontal translation.
To the right.
Right. 2. Dude, you opened the door. Nice. All right. The next one is a vertical
A vertical stretch.
shrink.
Okay. Well, the door closed back on.
Baffo 1/6. Remember on the outside, it's exactly what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
So it's a shrink. That's not a shriek. It's a shrink.
I did not see it.
And then we do a vertical
Stretch.
translation up 8. When it's a stretch, as if it's greater than 1. This? Because you're adding. It's a translation if you're adding. Okay, guys, I want to drop down to these. These are the last two I'm going to do with you. If you want more practice, there's 4 others over there. But I want to do these 2. You haven't seen one like this. Okay, but letter L, your parentheses, is the x plus 3. Well done. They're right here. Okay, it's up in that power position. So, right, the 3's up there with the x. That means it's coupled with the x. So if I'm adding 3, what is that?
That means it would be a
Horizontal. Translation. Good. Left. 3. And then what do I deal with? The negative. Now the 2 in this case is called a base number. You don't deal with the 2 here. You just deal with the negative. Okay, so this is a base. I know that's weird, but when we study exponents, I'll explain it a little more. The 2 is a base. Okay, the negative is what we deal with next, and that's a vertical reflection in which axis? The x-axis. Good. And then the last one is a vertical translation up 6.
Wait, so for the negative 2, so the 2 is just...
The 2's a base. It's because it's an x. We have an exponent we're dealing with. When we deal with that, I'll explain it when we cover that this year. Okay, last one. I want you to tell your neighbor there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you need to do to that. Tell your neighbor what they are. Okay, who knows the first thing? Haja, what is it? Horizontal. Okay, quiet please. Horizontal translation. Which way? Right? Nope. Good. It's left. 3. Right? It's different. Correct. I mean, okay, to the left 3. What's next? Someone else. Nathan, what do you got? What does that give us? Horizontal. 3. Oh, thank you. Horizontal. Stretch or shrink? Shrink. Bafo. 1/2. Okay. Then where do we go? Kristen? -4. So what do we have there? Good. We have a reflection or a stretch first. It doesn't matter which one. So if I did the vertical stretch, Bafo 4, then I go a vertical reflection over which axis? The x-axis. Okay, and then finally we deal with the -42, which is vertical translation up or down? Down 42. All right.